Good evening, everyone. Good evening. I'd like to start tonight's event with a land acknowledgement. As we gather here at the confluence of the Massawippi and the Alsegoneteg St. Francis rivers, we acknowledge that we are in the heart of Ndakina, the unceded territory and the traditional and ancestral lands of the Abenaki people. We honor their elders, past, present, and future. We acknowledge that our success is built on the history of violence towards Indigenous people and colonization of their lands. We seek a common way forward based on true reconciliation and peace. Thank you all for being here tonight. I'd like to welcome you. This is, I think most of you know already, this is our 20th year that we've been doing it here at the, that the library has been presenting Canada Reads, and so does Lennoxville. Can we just have a round of applause for that? Because there's people here. Yay. Just out of curiosity, how many of you were here 20 years ago for the first, I see a few hands. Yay. I'm not gonna start trying to acknowledge all the many people, volunteers over the years who were part of making this event happen, because I'm going to forget some names, but just know that this is a volunteer-led event, as are many things that the library offers. So it comes together thanks to the work of many volunteers. Thank you. Before I turn it over to Stephanie, I just want to, on a matter of housekeeping, I just want to make sure that everyone, as you came in, you got a ballot. Which is there in the entranceway. Ron was giving them. And also, if you would like to be in the drawing for prizes, at the end, you can get a ticket there for the drawing. We have a number of folks joining us via YouTube on the live stream. And for those of you who are joining us on the live stream, there's a link in the chat that you can click on if you want to put your name in to be part of the drawing online. So without further ado, I will turn it over to our long-running MC, Stephanie Brown.
Not that long, but yeah. Yeah, so I just want to repeat what Christian said about welcoming you all, and this is a great event. I was once a presenter in it, as were many people that I know, and I volunteered to do it as a presenter, and every year it's a great experience, so I'm very happy to see everyone here. And I'm also happy about the way it has evolved. Yeah, because of pandemic times, we had to go online, but then we discovered that having a hybrid situation actually pulls in a lot more people. So I have several questions for all of you. No, that's not true. The way we designed it this year, in the past, the presenters really were they were presenters. They spoke for about 13 minutes, and then I asked them a few questions, and then we segued into the next presentation, and then we had a series of Q&As from the audience. So I would be going into the audience to ask some questions of the presenters. So this year, we were looking at something a little bit more discussion-based, I think, is where I was coming from with it, to have a real conversation about books rather than just sort of presenting it as if it was a book review that then we questioned. So it's like really engage in literature. Because as a teacher of English, I find that when a child suddenly finds a book that they can engage in, it makes so much difference. And sometimes we just don't have access to those different voices. And so having an event like this really opens up the idea of learning about books, but also learning how different people see books from where they're coming from. What do they see in these books? So this year, the CBC has given us yet another very easy question to ponder. And the idea is it's the one book to shift your perspective. So the idea is that you defend your book, or you defend your book with the idea behind it of how is this going to shift the perspective of the audiences? How is this the one book that shifts the perspective of Canada, Canada's listeners, Canada's book lovers, Canada's readers? So the people on the stage up here tonight with me, they have various backgrounds. So I'm going to introduce every single one of them, and then they're going to have about 5 minutes this time instead of 13 minutes to sort of present their book. Ron over there is our timekeeper. He has this wonderful antique cowbell that he's going to, yeah. 4 All right, well, 4 minutes, give or take. So Ron says 4 minutes. He's going to hold up his little talking stick there, or I guess it's the ringer for the bell. There's a special name for it. It's escaping me right now. So at that point, I will go on to the next presenter. You have time to think. We asked each of the presenters this year also to come up with a question for the other presenters. And Isabelle and I were discussing about when is the right time for that question. Is it immediately after presenting your book? Or is it as we go into the discussion, maybe presenting the question after hearing everything that everybody said? So I'm really open. That's the kind of teacher I am. We have a plan, but the plan can be tweaked to the comfort level of the people involved. So what do you think? Do you want to go with your question right away after you've presented, or do you want to just move through the presentations? What do you think, Brandon? Yeah? Okay. I think so too. I like that idea. Yeah.
I prepped for 4 minutes, so I need 4 minutes.
Okay. All right, Curran. So up on the stage here, I have Isabelle Menard. So Isabelle Menard, I never know. Is this my right? Is this my right? My right, your left? Stage right? Okay. Isabelle Menard. So Isabelle is, Isabelle's a science geek and a lifelong learner. She never leaves her house without a book. Is that true? Yeah? Oh, my. Oh, you never know when you might have a minute to read. She lives on a small farm surrounded by creatures great and small. That makes me think of a book. Shares a crazy but wonderful life with her partner and 3 adventurous boys. In her free time, she teaches biology at Champlain and helps out in the refugee sponsorship group on campus. To my left, I have Bruce Gilbert, who will be presenting, Isabelle's presenting ducks, and Bruce is presenting Mexican Gothic. Bruce Gilbert is a professor of philosophy and liberal arts at Bishop's University and an active member of the Lennoxville United Church. Beside Bruce is Judith Munger. She'll be presenting Hotline by Dimitri Nasrallah. Judith is the wonderful librarian who works at Alexander Galt Regional High School. She's been there for almost 20, really? Almost 20. Really? Wow, we've been so blessed for 20 years. Her main mission is to create a respectful living space where all subjects can be discussed. So you're perfect for here. And ideas can be expressed. Welcoming diversity in all shapes and forms is also a priority for Judith. On the far left is Curran. Curran Jacobs is presenting Greenwood by Michael Christie. So Curran is a Ganayaga Haga, I tried, educator from Ganawage, who has an aversion to boredom and works many, many jobs. The most relevant, perhaps, for this crowd is that she's a lecturer in the Faculty of Education at Bishop's University, and we welcome her with us this evening. And lastly, over here is Brandon Morris, who's defending Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel. Long familiar with the townships, Brandon Morris has the good fortune to move to the Sherbrooke area in 2015 to teach English at Champlain College. Okay, so I would like you all to welcome our presenters this evening. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to begin the order. Ron chose the order for the presenters, correct? So we're going to begin with Hotline and Judith Munger. So Judith?
Hello, my name is Judith, and I want to ask for your kindness because I have a horrible accent, but I will speak with my heart. This book is the story of Muna. Muna is from Lebanon. She's a young widow, and she moved to Canada because of the war in Lebanon. She was supposed to move in with her husband. Unfortunately, he was kidnapped just a few days after they decided to leave the country. So she ends up alone with her son in Montreal. And the thing that struck me at first is the sense of smell. She says that everything smells bad, foul. And for me, all throughout the book, this comes always, and it reminds me that poverty has a smell. Because she's a teacher. She graduated in university in Lebanon. She can teach French. And because she can speak fluently French, she was told that in Quebec in the 1980s, that it would be okay, she would find a job easily like this, and then they would welcome her with their open arms and everything. But once she set foot in Quebec, it's not what's happened. What's happened is because she's from elsewhere. Her accent is not exactly what it should be. So she applies for jobs after jobs after job, and she always has a no. Finally, she tried to find an apartment, and somebody with a good heart welcomes her and rents her an apartment in the McGill ghetto, like they call it. So you have lots of students living there. But she's a young woman. She's barely 24. She has a child, and she has to take care of that child in a country where she doesn't know the culture or the customs. And she has to try to put a meal on the table and to take care of her family. And when she was in Lebanon, her husband was from a very rich family, but she was from a modest family. And because he was kidnapped and then he was thought to be dead, the family, after taking care of her and her child for a while, they kind of pushed her out of the country. They said, "You applied to immigrate to Canada, you should go." So pretty much they pushed her out of the country with a little bit of money, and then she had to make it on her own without any support system. When you come to a new country, and if you have moved around anywhere, in a new city, and you know nobody, you're by yourself, you don't know your neighbors, you don't know where is the grocery store, and you don't have any support system, you feel the loneliness. And the thing about this book is grief, the sense of loss. She lost her husband, she lost her family, both the in-laws and her own family that pushed her out of the country. She lost her career because she couldn't teach French here. She lost also all sense of roots, and she was starting over with nothing, really barely the clothes on her back. And because of all that sense of loss, finally she applies for a job in a call center for a diet program, Nutrifort. And she needs that money. So even though she doesn't like the job, she takes it, because if you have any children, you know that if you have a child that is hungry, you need to put food on the table. And you're willing to sacrifice a lot of your own self and dreams to make sure that your child is okay. And she, déjà? Oh, okay. Oh, finally, okay. I will just let you to say that it was a wake-up call about the treatment of immigrants in Quebec. At first, I thought that we were better than that, and I'm looking at it today, and it doesn't change as much since the 1980s. Sorry.
That's good. It's surprising how quickly the time goes. But we'll come back to some of the issues that you brought up. I mean, we'll come back to that idea of the sense of grief and loss and the sense of smell, that imagery. It was really good. Thank you, Judith. So, Bruce, you're going to tell us about Mexican Gothic. All right.
Indeed, Mexican Gothic. It is a creepy, suspenseful, mysterious novel written by a Mexican-Canadian, Silvia Moreno-Garcia. And it's fascinating and enthralling if you can stomach that kind of creepiness. And now, I should say, it's not so creepy that most people would have trouble getting through it. It's fascinating and engaging, and full of some of the classic things that you find in Gothic horror novels, like haunted houses and people who don't seem to die when they're supposed to, and many, many other similar features that one finds in these kinds of suspenseful novels. But it's also really important to say that, of course, so many films and books in this genre are kind of cheap thrills. You know, they build themselves just on their capacity to give you a scare or to make you feel weird and creepy about the world and make sure the door's locked. But this book is a lot more than that. A lot more than that. One could even say it's a kind of allegory. I'm going to read something to you from the very last page. Don't worry, I'm not giving away the ending. I won't even say who's saying it. In a certain sense, you could say it's an allegory for the competition between two philosophical views of the world. The first philosophical view, and I hesitate to put the name Donald Trump in the same sentence as the word philosophy, but it's kind of the Donald Trump philosophy. This is what one of the characters says, like I said, on the very last page. The world might indeed be a cursed circle. The snake swallowed its tail, and there could be no end, only an eternal ruination and endless devouring. That's one philosophical view, and once you read it, you'll find there's no difficulty discovering how that philosophical view comes up in the novel, quite literally. The second one, however, which takes place just a few sentences later, is the following. The future could not be predicted, and the shape of things could not be divined. To think otherwise was absurd. But they were young that morning, and they could cling to hope, hope that the world could be remade kinder and sweeter. Very different philosophical vision, and that's also there. And so just to deepen that sense of the allegorical richness of this novel, there's three dimensions of it that are crucial. First of all, it takes place on an old silver mine. If you know anything about the history of Latin America, the Spanish and Portuguese raped and killed and murdered to steal hundreds of thousands of tons of silver, especially from Mexico and Bolivia. And of course, this novel takes place in Mexico. And so that's part of the creepiness, is the real life historical imperialism and genocide that lurks throughout the novel. Secondly, it's a story about exploitation. There are workers by the thousands who have been exploited, who have been killed, also in the background constantly in this novel. And third, this is a novel whose heroine is a woman, a young socialite. It's in the 1950s. She receives a letter from her cousin claiming that her cousin's new husband is trying to kill her, and she goes off to this town, this strange, creepy mansion, to try and figure out what's going wrong with her cousin. But of course, in the process, despite the fact that she is a socialite, a middle-class or fairly wealthy woman who's quite vain, she's also tough, strong, and very smart. And it's those qualities that not only guide her through this terror, but that also lead her to be a transformed person. There we go, Mexican Gothic.
Again, a lot of food for thought. I'm taking notes so rapidly. Yeah, so we're going to come back to some of what you talked about. You touched on some things that I was thinking connected all the books, actually. So we'll see how that goes. So next on our list of presenters is Isabelle. Isabelle has Ducks, which is a graphic novel. Is this a first for Canada Reads? Does anybody know if this is? It is? Okay, so here we go.
All right, good evening. I'm going to refer to my notes because I'm a bit of a rambler. So as a teacher, up? Okay. Not used to this. So I said I'm going to refer to my notes because I'm a bit of a rambler. We have 4 minutes. So to be fair, when I saw Ducks on the shortlist for Canada Reads, I can't say that I was necessarily as interested in it as I am today. It was my second graphic novel, or actually graphic book, because it is not a novel. And, ducks, 2 years in the oil sands, not really something I was interested in hearing about. I'm a biologist. The oil sands are, as we know, have devastated lands throughout northern Alberta. So not something I was really drawn to. The images were amazing. But I thought, well, you know what? I have to come to this open-minded. So with this year's topic being one book to shift your perspective, I can say to you that it really has. So I've read it a couple of times now. It's a rapid read because it is a graphic book. It's an autobiography of Kate Beaton, who is, for some of you, you might know her as a cartoonist. She's had a webcomic called Hark a Vagrant. And so she has a lot of very witty humor. But in this book, she sets aside that humor and speaks of 2 years that she spent working in the oil sands after graduating from university. So Kate Beaton is a graduate with a Bachelor of Arts from Nova Scotia. She is from Cape Breton, and in the early 2000s, the work was really difficult to find. So as a young 21-year-old, just graduated with a Bachelor of Arts, she decided that before anything else, she wanted to pay off her student debt. So I don't know if anybody here has had to pay off student debt. It can be a little bit challenging. She decided to head out west to the oil sands, where she found, she found out she could make money really quickly. So her mindset was, I'll just go there for a little while, make a lot of money, and pay off my student debt, and then I'll be able to do what I want to do. Unfortunately, you find out that in those 2 years, she had a lot more to face than she realized at 21 years old. So she had to deal with some significant gender tensions, gender-related tensions in the workplace, power dynamics, so big corporations controlling their employees. But what's really amazing about this format, and it's not a format that I would have necessarily picked up before, but at this point I now recognize there is a beauty to a graphic book. So with her images, you're able to grasp the impact of her story. You're able to see nonverbal language in how the different characters interact. You can see the land. Can see the devastation of the land. One of the things that I did want to just read off to you, a friend and I were talking about this book, and one of the things that came out was what we come to realize is that what she shows in her drawings is really important, but what she doesn't show sometimes can have even a greater impact. So she starts her journey in Fort McMurray, in one of the oil sands close to the large city, and she finds out really quickly that as one of very few women in a very male-dominated area, she ends up being I guess I don't want to say the word victim, we'll say survivor, but she did for 2 years end up having to live through a significant amount of sexual harassment, misogyny, and so on. Thank you. 4 minutes. So what I guess we find out is Kate goes through some very difficult times. You have to know that there are some really difficult situations in here. So if there are certain things that could trigger something for you, just keep that in mind. But none of it is too graphic. It's really just, again, it's what is not being shown in her pictures that can show the greatest stories in some ways. Thank you.
Thank you, Isabelle. Okay, Station 11 is next up. Yeah.
Okay, good evening all. Is this volume level okay? Okay, higher up, like so. Okay, cool. So I'm presenting to you Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel. Probably the best way to sum up the novel is that it's a before and after novel. The central event, which we actually don't see that much of, is a pandemic of a terrible flu virus that kills more than 99% of the human population. But about half of the story concerns events, people, places before the pandemic and about half comes after the pandemic. And it's not set out in one giant chunk before and one giant chunk after. You have many scenes from before and after placed next to each other. Some of them involving the same people. Many of them people who were there before the pandemic are not there afterwards. Some of the same themes. So for example, the parts from before the pandemic center around an actor. He's performing in King Lear, the night when the pandemic strikes. And much of the action after the pandemic follows the Traveling Symphony, a group of actors and musicians who, in the aftermath of much of humanity disappearing, decide that despite all the challenges, despite all the losses, they're going to find a way to keep art going. Okay, in terms of how this book changes your perspective, why it's the book that shifts your perspective, from an English teacher point of view, this is a fantastic compare-contrast device. You are constantly reminded of how the world has changed before and after the pandemic, and also what stays the same. So St. John Mandel is careful. She doesn't give short shift to all the things that disappear with so much of humanity gone. She pays attention to little things, hot showers. The characters are super excited when they get to have hot showers after the pandemic because this is mostly gone. Swimming pools, electric lights. She really pays attention to the little things. But for me, the most interesting thing about it is what it shows about how we're the same. And it's okay, to phrase this properly. The characters after the pandemic are intensely vulnerable. One of the most horrifying stretches is when, as the Traveling Symphony is going along, they start losing people. Every time they stop, after a few hours, they find that another person is gone. They suspect they might know who's behind it, but they don't know. And there's this sense that it could be any one of us. And however vigilant we try to be, however careful, we're always at risk. The characters are very vulnerable after the pandemic, but what you come to realize more and more is that even before, all of the characters, even the ones who are celebrities, even the ones who seem most insulated from all the rocks that life can throw, all of them can be and are always on the edge of being undone. All of them are in danger of some sort. That's the thread that holds the book together. That's what keeps the tension. That's what keeps you reading. That's one of the things that makes it a really amazing read. So highly recommended. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Brandon. I like the concept of vulnerability, which has been touched on pretty much so far in all the presentations. So Curran, you're the next one. Curran is going to be telling us why what's Greenwood by Michael Christie. It shifts our perspective. All right.
That's the plan. Sosego Zeoguego, that's hello everyone in my language. One of the things that I'd like to start by saying is that this question about which novel, why this novel in particular, Greenwood, shifts perspective, particularly for Canadians, is actually very fitting for me because I like to think that I'm in the business of shifting perspective as well as an educator, but particularly as an Indigenous educator. And one of the common conversations that we have in my classes and with other people that I'm working with, and even my friends, revolves around the conversation of reconciliation and colonialism in the landscape of Canada. And so how fitting that a book that revolves around the landscape of Canada also carries those same kind of themes around reconciliation and colonialism, but it is written from a non-Indigenous perspective, which has been very important for me as a tool, because now as I start to have conversations with individuals about what does real reconciliation in the landscape of Canada look like? I feel like Michael Christie, with his book Greenwood, has given us an opportunity for everyone to access the effects of colonialism. This novel, right, I mean, not only did it speak to me particularly because of each individual character's relationship to Ogriresu'a, which is the tree beings, which is something that is particularly challenging for a lot of people who are non-Indigenous that I engage with, to say that is an othering, that Indigenous people have such close relationships to the land. And yet the truth is that this is a human experience and not an Indigenous experience. And so what Michael Christie is asserting in this book is that he's giving this opportunity for every single reader to be able to own their humanness in relationship to the natural world. And it's kind of eye-opening because as you start to unpack the intergenerational trauma of non-Indigenous characters and the complex relationship between commodifying nature versus being a part of it, these are themes that the non-Indigenous characters in this novel are facing, which mirror the realities of Indigenous people that we see in Canada today. And so as I started, I couldn't stop reading it, guys. Like, there's a whole image about the tree and how you go through the years and the rings of the tree, and I was sucked in from the beginning. But what was most important for me was that this was a book for the first time that was, in my life, was written by a non-Indigenous person that I could see myself in, and that I could have conversations with other people, regardless of to walks of life. And we could share this understanding of how colonialism has impacted all of our lives. And so I think the complex relationship between capitalism and the commodifying of nature, and then also the intergenerational trauma of being disconnected from your past generations, because the character that this centers on has no idea about who her family is and what the story is that has brought her to where she is. And yet, as we start to learn that, we start to understand how this intergenerational trauma has affected her into the place that she is today. And we can also kind of see that trauma go through with the trees, right? What starts off as a novel as being about the end of the world, the great withering of the trees, actually ends up having us look at what is the path that took us to this point. And it's pretty critical for Canadians right now to say, how can we change that outcome? And I think that Michael Christie has asserted that for all of us. He's given us something to think about in terms of how we're all colonized. And I got 27 seconds left and I am quitting.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for your presentations. Give me a lot of food for thought here. As I said, I was madly scribbling notes, but then also hearing a lot of things that from my research into the books and with my help of Mead, my reader, who gave me some questions, who unfortunately can't be with us this evening, it sort of brought up these ideas about colonialism and power and inequity. And one thing that struck me is that the protagonists are young women. And a lot of times you said that your protagonist 24, 21, one of them, she's 28, Jake is, I don't know. Yeah, but that's the whole other thing about the way that book is structured. But within all of them, there's this 20s, in your 20s, what Bruce said. So there's this powerful representation and women who have been kind of underrepresented. However, even if they're male authors, they're still creating an authentic voice, perhaps for women. It's very interesting what you said, Curran. So at this point, we did something else different this year, not just the shortening of the presentations and changing the way that we're sitting together, engaging in the books differently. I think it was Christian, who had this idea of maybe having the presenters pose a question, or maybe it was just the whole committee, pose a question to each other, to prepare a question or have an idea of a question that you wanted to ask your other presenters about something in their books or something generally like a bigger theme that came across. So we could do rock, paper, scissors, or I could just volunteer people. Bruce. Oh, Judith. I love it when I have volunteers. Okay, Judith Munger.
Something strikes me like I'm not going with the question prepared before, because both, like your 3 books, they all talk about l'environnement, the exploitation of nature, reconciliation with the roots, like the tree, but the roots also of everyone, like living on the planet. And I think those 3 books, they kind of share that kind of vision. And the exploitation, because like in indigenous tradition, they take care of the earth. But for us, like exploiter, like colonialist, whatever, like they explore, they exploit, but they don't take care of it after. They just leave garbage behind. So do you think that this would be the way maybe to start the conversation with the people kind of exploiting the planet that way? It's a question for 3, I'm sorry. Eh?
No, it's okay. But you know, it ties in Braden's book as well, Station 11. Yeah, but okay, Curran, I think Curran wants to say something.
Well, I really like the question because, again, this is a conversation I come into a lot where there's this like us and them mentality that Indigenous people take care of the land and then colonizers did not. What's really important, I think, about this novel is that it really emphasizes the complexity of what is the reason why somebody might not care for the earth. Because the reality is that as much as we have conversations about Indigenous culture and how we are so severely connected to the natural world, colonialism has pulled that away from a lot of us, and that connection to culture is lost. And so there are a lot of people who are in the business of exploiting the natural world who are also Indigenous. And so this isn't just a colonizer's experience, right? And I mean, colonizer is sort of an outdated word in the conversations now, but I know what you're saying. And so I think it's important for us not just to read this book, but to also have these conversations, because it is recognizing that everyone is colonized, and what does colonialism impact each person's life in Canada? And I would even say, like, it's a really good question coming from the book that you're reading, right? Because immigration now, what are the conditions with which people have to move away from their own, in their home, right? And we talk about Indigenous people as being where they come from, but everybody comes from somewhere. And so the bigger conversation here then is, you know, how are we more alike in these differences, and how has colonialism impacted all of us in ways that we can build empathy and share? And so, I mean, and I'm excited to hear the answers from some of your novels, because I know that this book definitely addresses that.
But moving away from where you're from, it makes me think of Isabelle's book as well, because she's leaving Cape Breton and she's going into this. You know, we talk about like Canadian culture, but you know, like Cape Breton is not Alberta. You know, it's not, and she is moving into a place that, for reasons of poverty, for reasons of debt, that she has to move to this. So, I mean, do you feel, like Judith's question was to you, but like, I mean, Curran's addressed, do you wanna answer what Judith was asking you, or?
Well, I guess maybe I'd like to kind of hear a little bit more from the question, because I guess we definitely do talk about the abuse of the land in the oil sands. Obviously, you know, Kate does address that. The title of the book is actually based on a story that's brought up in the story. About these ducks that fall into a tailing pond. Tailing pond being a sort of, if I can understand correctly, like, kind of a lake or a pond in which all of the... No?
Keep going. We're going to keep going.
I can keep going? Okay. In which all of the, I guess the crude
everything that's been refined out of the
extraction are being found, and you have a few hundred ducks that end up dying in this pond. So the title of the book is in fact speaking of the exploitation of the land, but a lot of what she addresses is the relationship also of the different individuals together. So I don't know, maybe a little bit more about the question, maybe how it would suit.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay.
It's because also, like we think about Syncrude and Suncor that has two mega companies exploiting oil and tar sands in Fort McMurray, but they say they're green. And my question is, like, is it mentioned in there that they are doing something to be greener? Because they have a big marketing thing going on to say that they are the greenest oil exploitation, whatever.
Well, so this was said in the early 2000s. I'm not sure they were really as concerned with it. I think what came out of what she lived through, there ended up being some significant pressure to these industries. They don't necessarily talk outright. There is at one point where they mention that she goes from working for Syncrude to working up in Lost Lake, I think, or Long Lake, I forget, Long Lake. And in Long Lake, their process is green. But by green, it means slightly greener, because instead of digging, they actually aspirate the oil up. So apparently that makes it a little bit greener. But you're right. I mean, it's not necessarily that a topic that would be a main focus on the book, but it is definitely brought up.
Okay. Bruce, did you want to address Judith's question, or do you have a question for your fellow panelists?
Maybe I'll just ask it.
That's okay. Pick up the mic.
I'll ask a question.
All right, cool.
It seems like one of the purposes of Canada Reads is to get people reading and to help us move away from something that's close to an addiction to consuming all of our drama through television and film. And so I'd just like to ask the other presenters, what about their novel entices us to read rather than watch?
Oh, well, that's a good question, seeing as we're not doing questions from the audience at this point. Thank you. That's interesting because Station 11 was actually recently made into a Netflix. I think it was Netflix or HBO. I'm not really sure. Okay, so you want to address that?
Okay, so first, full disclosure, I have not yet watched the series that's been made of Station 11.
Okay. That's okay.
So, but in terms of what makes it work as a novel rather than a series or even a song or a graphic or something like that, this is really deeply literary. It starts and it ends with people performing in plays by Shakespeare. It has to do, or it explores people who are making stories of their own, written, spoken. I don't think there's another medium where you can get that kind of density, that kind of connectedness to all these other works, all these other cultural landmarks. Yeah, so that's it for me. By the way, very, very short note, coming back to Judith's question. It's really interesting that, okay, because of the pandemic, there are no more nations in the world of this book. There are no more of the usual familiar social groupings. It seems that the idea is that this has been such a shock that all of that falls away. I wonder if that might be a way of dodging the question for the author about colonization and reconciliation. But anyways, I'll stop there.
That's okay. Isabelle, do you have a question for your fellow panelists?
Ooh, yes.
Or your thoughts that you were coming up to the car, like, oh, I'm driving off.
Yes, that's right.
We were talking
so
about that.
I teach 17-year-olds, 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds, etc., who are, it is hard to get them to read. It's one of the struggles we have as teachers to get them to crack open a book. So I was trying to think, like, what is it that reaches the younger crowd in the room? So I guess the way I would maybe phrase a question would be, you're approached by someone who wants to do a 2-minute TikTok video of a scene in your book. What scene do you think you would want these young people to watch? What message are you trying to put across?
Okay. Who wants to take that one? Wow. Okay.
Well, I was prepared to answer the first question because I don't think that this should be visual at all. I think that it's purely a read. However, thanks for the challenge. And And I think so. The only thing that I would suggest, and this is a beautiful comparison of the East Coast and the West Coast, just to put into perspective how insignificant human life really is that as far as a TikTok is concerned visually, I would start by having just a person with, one of those songs that's like really popular, that's all about invoking emotions and stuff that kids are really into. First in the forest here, where the trees are very, very puny. Because we clear-cutted all of our original massive trees we used to have on this side. But then to kind of compare that, like, they have these TikToks where, like, people are, like, filming on the ground, and they're like, wait till you see the view. And then all of a sudden, it's like this beautiful mountain. And so I would start in the forest here, but then have that same kind of image to look at what the difference is when there are full forests that have not been touched by humans, and then to have that comparison. And for me, that would be the thing that would pull in about, now we need to learn more about that. I think that would be my TikTok.
Do you want to come back to addressing the question that you before? Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I mean, listen, I made that up because we're making TikToks now, but this book should never be a film version ever. And I say that because I was very upset when The Giver became a film version. Still haven't seen it. Read The Giver in like 1999.
Yeah,
so
no.
I'm a lifer. But I just want to. There's this little excerpt where there's one of the characters, and there are many characters in this book. And the beauty of this is that we follow a timeline that starts in the future, moves to the past, and then rebuilds information as we move back to the future. It's extremely powerful. And so one of the characters who carries a lot of weight but doesn't have a lot of space in the novel, Liam Greenwood, there's a moment where he falls, and there's this tiny chapter. Like, if you can see it, it's like the littlest thing, which also small chapters entices young people to read, right? But it's called A Spine, and it says, what else could it be, he thinks, with its gently curving trunk of bone, its limbs and branches and tributaries of nerve tissue, its flexibility and delicacy and elegant perfection, other than a kind of tree buried in our backs, standing us up? And if all of this is true, then would it be reasonable for Liam Greenwood to finally admit that plunging from a height of 27 feet and 5/8 of an inch to a polished concrete floor, has cut his own tree down, felled it, severing its trunk just above his tailbone, and it will never stand upright again? And in that passage alone, I cannot envision in any way that we can get the same severity of his injury and also the relationship between human and trees without having it in a written form. So that's but we're still going to make the TikTok with the two forests.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
That book is all about feeling and about humans and everything, and I don't think it would fit the TikTok or even being in a movie, because it would become too sappy if the actors are not right. And by reading it, you make your own movie in your head, so you don't need to see it projected with the idea of someone else, because reading a book is really personal. Your feelings are your own, and you can share, you can try to have enlighten someone also, like with some wisdom that you find in it. But this is definitely a read, because you can read it like in one session, or you could read it little by little and let it like sink in your soul, so that you have your feeling that's sore after that, because this is about humans, like really about feelings and humans.
Okay. Looking at my schedule, where are we? We're almost at audience questions. So I'm just gonna tell you some of the links that I saw looking at the notes and reading the excerpts, and they're actually coming to fruition here, listening to all the wonderful the words that are being shared right now. So one was the links that I see connecting the books. One was the female characters in the books, which I think we kind of touched on. One is the movement through time. So the movement through time. So this is like Station 11 and Greenwood. These sort of links to the past, inherent, still present in the future. So like the names. There's some names that pop up, and also the way that it's staggered like a staircase and staggered back up, and then also like the ideas of movement through time in the sense of like you're in the same time in ducks, but you're moved to a completely different location. And the same with Hotline. That's like that. It's this movement in a sort of links through time, and yours as well. This kind of idea of the never dead, the undying, the remaining alive for a century kind of thing, or close to it. All of that sort of thing, the movement of time, but also the links to the past, and these sort of like moments, these deja vu moments almost, and kind of in Station 11. But when you start thinking about it, there are all these like, that's one of the things that I saw. I'm kind of babbling, I know. But also the idea of debt, like some of these people with student debt. You know, like she's working there, Jake is working there because of the student debt, and she goes to work in these oil sands because of student debt. And you're in debt, the poverty, the debt. I'm not really as familiar with Mexican Gothic, and I'm trying to think, but there's more other kinds of debt other than monetary debt. So that's what I was kind of thinking, and you sort of touched on that, I think, Curran, when you're talking about, you know, our connection with nature, that we have lost that connection. We've lost that moment in time, and we're kind of moving away from it in some cases, but a lot of us are moving towards it. But the debt of the idea of something owed that's not just monetary, but something else. And just like greed, and what greed has done to how we find ourselves in the world. That's something that I saw connecting all these books in a way. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but that's kind of what I saw. So shall we take it to the audience now? Do you want to think about that? Oh, absolutely, Judith. You're always welcome. Anyone else too, before I'm going to move into the audience in a few minutes.
Okay, me again. Okay. It's because like her husband died, but she learns like that he died like just a few months before the end of the book. But he was kidnapped. But all throughout the book, she has those conversations with him. She communicates with him. And it is a real conversation. So for her, she knows he's dead or almost dead. But they still continue because they have the love and they had the dreams. But she still is reaching out for kind of some console or something because they have a child. And also, she tries to transmit to her child too. So, but the conversation is always open throughout the book. She always talks with her husband, even though he's not there anymore.
Okay, so that's kind of the idea that I was. Can I use the other mic? Yeah, I'm going to do that. I'm going to go with the handheld, non-wired mic at this point, and I'm just going to go into the audience. Hopefully, you'll be able to hear the questions. Thanks again, and then we're going to figure out. I don't know. I think we've moved away from the idea of like perspective, but in a way, I think we haven't ever actually moved away from the idea of perspective. All right, so. Now is it working? Okay. Something simple. Do we have any questions from the audience this evening, or any ideas? What? Oh, 2 from the live stream. Okay. Do you need the mic, or Saul? I'll bring the mic. This is Saul. Saul is one of the probably many former students of mine in the audience. Library employee, and he's doing the live stream for us. So here we go. Saul, what are the questions that we have for this evening? I'll hand you the mic.
So these questions aren't directed at anyone in particular, so if anyone feels inclined to answer, please feel free. The first one is, here's a question for the presenters. What book that is not your own surprised you the most? Did you guys hear the question?
So I can say for me, I was surprised and intrigued to hear about the structure of Greenwood and the way that the story is told, the backwards and forwards. That sounds really cool. I'm intrigued.
I'm going to show you later, there's this beautiful image of the tree. And when we talk about the rings of the tree and how you can tell the age of it, the story follows the tree. It's just so amazing. I know, I'm a little bit biased, guys. But to answer this question, so I started to look at some of the other books, and I'll be honest, ducks is one that surprised me. I am an avid reader of graphic novels. I actually took a course when I did my English degree, and I read Batman Return of the Dark Knight, and it was the greatest thing of my life. I thought it was so good. And so then I went on this rampage, and the Sandman series, but if you want recommendations, that's not for this time. So I get, but I'm very much like a superhero person now when it comes to graphic novels, but thinking about, especially look at the size of that book. The things that can come out of the images in that, it surprised me to see the size of it and to think about the complexity of the story. So yeah, that one really got me.
Okay.
I would also say I was surprised by ducks, actually, because as I said, I was not attracted to that book as much as the others in the beginning, but I was surprised, and it's now my favorite. So sorry, guys.
Okay, Shanna, you have a question?
So I've only read Ducks completely, so my question is about that. I think so often we hear about any kind of polarizing issue as being like really black and white, and this book, I think Kate really tries to put the nuance in it, and I especially found it really poignant when she was talking about like receiving harassment, but that also like the boys in the camp were like the boys from her neighborhood, that they were familiar, and like so that if she spoke out about it, it also felt like a betrayal. So I'm wondering if you had a comment on how intentionally she put nuance inside of things that we might think of as being like bad or good, and maybe that happened in the other books too. Nuance, that's my topic.
It's a really good question, actually. I was glad that somebody asked it, because there's a couple of times where she comes up in conversation with people about just that, the idea that is it, because she does have to deal with quite a bit of sexual harassment. It's pretty intense at moments. She suffers from more than one sexual assault. But you could see that she questions whether or not the people who are responsible for those actions would be like this, and she says it at home, or if they're just like this in camp. And so she kind of brings up this question, and you don't get a resolution for it in the book, but she does talk about this nuance of, is it the setting, is it the isolation, is it the distress that these employees, these workers are in, because you do see later on, significant alcohol abuse, drug abuse, suicide, violence. So, is it just that's one of the ways in which they cope with the difficult realities that they're in?
We have another question online from.
So the second question from the chat comes from Brian. He asks, if you could describe your book in one word, what would it be?
Okay. Who wants to jump in? One word to describe your book. What do you think? Judith?
Survival and resilience, too.
Oh, she's cheating. Cheater. Okay, survival. Okay, Bruce, what do you think?
The only word that comes to mind is a French word.
Oh, yeah.
The word that comes to mind is a French word, épanouissement, like blossoming or blooming or something like that.
Oh,
yeah.
Cool. All right. Brandon?
Yeah, but boy, I was just trying to think if I could possibly get to one. I'll go with one of the standards, gripping.
Gripping? Okay. Isabelle, what do you think?
I have a hard time not picking the same one as Judith, but I would definitely say survival. So I'll pick one of yours, you can keep the other.
Curran?
Is it cheating if I choose my one word from a different language?
No, as long as, he chose one from a different language as well, so fair is fair.
The word, I found the loophole, guys, I'm so sorry. The word that I would choose is Jagariwakanyande, which is a Ganyageha word, which is in our language. What's beautiful about the language is that it doesn't just mean one thing, so I'm sorry. You had to choose one word, but I get a sentence now. But Jagariwakanyande means something out of the ordinary. And I learned that from an elder when I say awesome all the time. That's awesome, that's awesome. And she said that her mother used to use Jagariwakanyande, but it means something out of the ordinary for good or for bad. And I am gonna sit in the liminal space that say this book is out of the ordinary for both good and bad.
The actual true definition of the word extraordinary, beyond ordinary. That's my English teacher stuff kicking in. Okay, any other questions from the audience at this point? Oh, yes, Emily! Hi!
So nice to see you. Thank you all so much. It's such a joy to hear you guys talk about these books so passionately. I've read a couple of them. I was thinking about how Mexican Gothic and Ducks and Greenwood all kind of show us that different kinds of violence and oppression, like colonialism and capitalism and sexism and racism, kind of work together. And my question, and I also want to say that it really hit a nerve, Curran, when you said, why would someone exploit the earth? I feel like that's a question that really gets to the heart of that. And I want to follow up by asking to any of the presenters, what does your book teach us about how we can break out of these ways of relating to each other and relate to each other and the natural world in more ethical ways? What can we learn?
Great question. You must have had a good teacher.
Well, I can start with Mexican Gothic quickly, and of course, maybe this is because I teach too much Greek philosophy, but it really relies on two classic old Greek virtues. One is wisdom, and one is courage. The main character, Noemi, has to have both of those all the time and very intensely. And it's, I alluded earlier to this struggle that we're having with democracy in the world right now, that we need to struggle with courage and wisdom to overcome those kinds of problems, the same kind of things that the other people are talking about with the environment or the alienation of indigenous peoples and so on and so on. Those kinds of virtues are classic oldies, but they're really, really important.
Isabelle?
I would answer, as I was thinking about the question, I guess there's two things that come to mind for me. One is accountability, and the other one would be representation, because what happens in the oil sands, there's two things that seem to be happening. There's no accountability to each other. Individuals seem to just do whatever they want. You see it in their behavior. Nobody questions. And in fact, at some point, Kate speaks to a superior about some of the situations in the workplace, and he basically says, get over it. You decided to come here. So there's no accountability. And the other one on representation, we're in a situation where there are a significant number of males and very few females. There's no representation of those groups or an appropriate representation. There's going to be more oppression of the women in the camps because they can't stand together. There's so few of them, and in fact, they're constantly being oppressed, so they don't really get a chance to rise up and speak for themselves. So those two things come to mind for Dax.
Empathy and resilience, but to have empathy for resilience, which is so key in this novel. Particularly when we're trying to, we want to blame other people. You're worse than I am. What you're doing is way more exploitive than what I do. And then so there's a lot of this back and forth. One of the things that I'm thinking about right at the end of the novel, I'm not going to tell you who says it, okay? Because I don't want to ruin it for you. But one of the notions at the end of the novel is that, because this goes back into the 1930s, this book. And they talk about the time when it was, there was dust. And the people at that point in time were so concerned that this was the end times. And yet there was this resiliency of having to navigate the world and figure out how to get through it. And so they had this resiliency. And so when we can empathize that all humans have had to endure some sort of, environmental challenge or relationship challenge or economic challenge over time, when we can build that empathy and recognize that resilience is what gets us through it, then we can start to empathize with each other and then build that collective resilience. And I think that this book really, really emphasizes that over time, because it's repetitive, right? As we go from the 1930s up now into the year 2038, it's repetitive, this idea that we're constantly as a human race battling adversity. And most of the time, it's with our mother, the earth. And so that's really, it's really interesting to see that resilience that comes through. And you know, when we're talking about like the future and pandemics, and like we're still doing these things, and humans are still resilient. Like we weren't able to do this 2 years ago, and yet here we are again, right, doing this now. And so I think that those are the kind of the greatest equalizers that we can have with each other. And I've learned that lesson from this book.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, sorry. Marina, at some point, she starts teaching French to Chinese women because they cannot go to school at night, like the government want them to go to. And they are treated with condescending treatment, like when they go to those schools, because they're too slow, they don't learn fast enough and whatever. And at some point, she realizes that they're learning a language, but I'm learning something too. I see how we all live together in the shadows of this city. People on the streets see women like us and expect that after moving here, we'll carry on for the rest of our lives as housewives, ignorant, doting mothers to assimilate school children. No one pays women like us any attention. We're harmless and consequential. We're allowed to go on with whatever life we can piece together so long as we don't get into anybody else's way. In the 1980s, that was the treatment of women immigrants. And if you go anywhere in town, any like store or whatever, and try to find that it's different today. It might be a little better, but not that much.
Did you want to speak to this, Brandon? Or?
Very briefly, in terms of addressing those challenges that you brought up. For this book, the answer is clearly empathy. There's a great moment near the end where you find out that where you get a vision of the villain of the novel, as he was when he was a scared kid and the entire world had just come crashing down around him, and 99% of the people he had known were now gone. And he's left on his own to make whatever sense he can of this. And you see the seeds of how this will lead to his behavior later. But the emphasis is still on recognizing common humanity. That's it.
Okay. So I have just a question for the end, just a question for thought. I guess I can use this one. How has the experience, and this is maybe a question for everyone, it's a question that, it's a question that I would probably, I actually developed it for my secondary 5 students recently, posted it on their Google Classroom today. How has this experience of reading and listening to others changed your thinking? And I think that's really what the question is from CBC this year, is like, how has this experience of reading and listening to others changed your thinking? So, I don't know if we have an answer. I think I just want to end it on that note, because all the other things were like, what's a passage, and you all did that just instinctively. And I would like to thank you all so much. Do you have any last things that we want to say? Questions from the audience? Anything online, Saul? Okay. Okay. Well, I thank everyone. Oh, we have one more. So last question of the evening. Here we go.
First of all, you all did a very good job. I love to read. I want to read all those books. I have a loud voice usually. I love I'd love to be able to read all the books. It's always good to know that there's good stories out there. What I didn't hear is about the writing of the books, because you could pick up books. I don't know about me, and all of a sudden you don't like the style of the writing. So is there one, can you describe it shortly? Because obviously we're out of time. Okay, about the writing of the book.
Well, Judith mentioned the stuff about the imagery of the smells. Yeah. So if we could think of one, say, writer's move, like one literary device or way of putting the words together that you in order to satisfy that question. I think it's a valid question. So Where shall we begin? Bruce, yeah.
Just quickly, I mean, when we're used to horror films, you can immerse yourself in the visual image on the screen so easily, especially in a big theater. To actually create an immersive effect as a writer requires a really artistic kind of craft that Silvia Moreno-Garcia achieves in this book.
So, I mean, listen, just read Greenwood. It really is an experience because of the way that it is crafted. But since I'm going to respect the answering the question in terms of a literary device, the overall metaphor of the novel and the metaphors that exist within it, to me, is what makes it a very literary read. But I would even go deeper and to say that it is the similes, the actual direct comparisons between humans and the trees, which is he just crafts it beautifully. And I think that, like, if I had students read this book and only pull out metaphors and similes, man, we'd have a lot to talk about. So that's what I'm going to go with.
Okay. Brandon? Yeah.
Sure. I'm going to steal a word from another commentator about the book, but elegiac. The writing in it is always respectful, serious, thoughtful, really trying to capture whatever it's talking about. That's what comes to mind for me.
Yeah. Elegiac, okay. Isabelle?
So I have a graphic autobiography. So,
but you spoke to the pictures before about how the pictures say so much about the body language and what is not said.
And I think that's what I would come back to, because I'm a very imaginative reader. I can imagine as I read the scenes, the stories, the people, what they look like, their body language. So this was a bit challenging because now I'm having it imagined for me. But I have to say that it gave me a depth of experience because the way that she used her images filled in blanks that I never would have imagined. She also used images to say so much with no words. So wordless pictures, wordless images, faces with no conversation. And so it's going to sound weird, but I would say sometimes the lack of words is what gave the greatest depth to the story.
Judith, yeah. You spoke before about the imagery of the sense of smell.
Yeah, but there are every time there are very strong emotions in her life, she will use Arabic words, because it's from her culture. So she tries to, and she will speak French and English, but every time it's a strong emotion, it will be in Arabic. Yeah. And also there are little pearl of wisdom all through the book, and just your everyday little thing, like she says, this is a good description. Motherhood is not your sacrifice to the family, but your gift. Without you there is no center to the home, no one to cook or to care, because she's on the phone line and she's giving a pep talk to one of her dieters, and the woman is not sure of her role as a mother and her role as her importance in the family, and she tells her, no, you're a gift to the family. You're not at their service, you're their gift.
Wow. Okay, good question. Thanks so much for that. So my question was just to leave us thinking with the idea of this idea of this new format. To me, it was really fantastic. I really I hope we do it again. I hope you had a great time with it. My other question was about people being haunted, but I think that we're all kind of, we all lived through events that we've imagined. We are all haunted by events that we've lived through or imagined, and how the characters are haunted. But I think that's a whole other evening's discussion. So we're just going to wrap it up. There's actually at this point there's little ballots. You'll see ballots on your tables. Okay, and Christian has made these wonderful ballots with a little graphic of the book. Okay. I hate having to vote for books, so I don't actually vote. I stay neutral, as I should be. And then we're going to have, I hope everyone still has their little tickets, because there are door prizes. Don't win an actual door, but stuff from all sorts of, I know, I had to. It's not a funny joke. I never said it was going to be. I'm funny in my own mind. Okay, so lots of swag, as my brother would say, lots of swag from the town and the CBC, lots of good things. So they're going to have the vote, and I want to again thank you all. It's great. We're going to have a little schmooze after. They have to stick around for a photo, our traditional photo. It's one with you guys and then one with the book in front of your faces, so you can just have a good time. So there's also refreshments, so you help yourself to refreshments. If you would like to go get some snacks and some drink and something in the lobby and come back, and we'll join us each other back on the stage, that'd be great too.
Convince them to vote for us?
Can you just encourage the people online to vote? There's a link you can tell, or do you want me to just do it?
No, okay, there's also, for those of you who are watching us online, there's a link. There is a link that has been set up. Saul has set it up so that you can actually vote for your choice, which the one book to shift our perspective, is that it? Shift one book that shifts your perspective. I don't know, CBC.
Teachers were used to have an hour of
One book to shift your perspective, ladies and gentlemen. Please, people watching online, please vote. Please do vote. Thank you. Can you make sure that once you've cast your vote, Ron is coming around with a basket. There are baskets coming around from our committee members and volunteers. Okay. There's wonderful snacks in the lobby with all the ingredients marked in case you're of those, if you're gluten intolerant or nut intolerant. There's coffee, decaf and regular coffee. There's tea, there's juice, and there's good old water. H2O.
Like this one, Ducks, I will order it. My graphic novel collection.
Okay, Christian, you want to take it over? Or? Okay. I'm going to hand the mic over to Christian Collins, the coordinator of the Lennoxville Borough Library. Okay.
Okay, now is the moment when we draw the prizes. And we have lots of great prizes courtesy of the CBC, as Stephanie said, from the Ville de Sherbrooke, from Shalimar Restaurant. Those will be the grand prizes at the end, but we're going to start. We have a drawing for the folks online and a drawing for the folks who are here. So we are going to start with, do we do a... Yeah.
Okay, so these have been donated by the town and also by the CBC. Is that my understanding?
Yes.
I got a lovely T-shirt last year. I didn't win it. My friend Sue won it, and then she gave it to me, and it was it's such soft, comfy cotton. I thank her enormously for that gift. I thank my book club members for coming. Thank you.
So do we start? We'll start with an in-person drawing because Saul's going to have to tell us for the online ones. We have an umbrella with the City of Sherbrooke logo on it.
All right.
And for those rainy days.
You can take it when you're golfing, but not in a thunderstorm. Okay, so the number, I've drawn the ticket for 0417373. Is it? Oh my God, it's my friend Sue. I guess I'm going to be getting an umbrella later. Yes. All right, never mind.
And we have so many prizes. I think we're going to have to move fast here because we have online for the online participants. We had 28, 29 folks online. We have another City of Sherbrooke umbrella for the online folks. And Saul, I'm sorry, you're just going to have to shout the name.
Valerie Willette.
Valerie Willette, yay.
Yes, a Galt employee, I think, yes. Okay, Sue has chosen the number for the next person here.
The City of Sherbrooke tote bag.
City of Sherbrooke tote bag. So the winner of the City of Sherbrooke tote bag is number 0417393. 393. 393. Surely somebody. Oh. Here we go.
And online, we have a City of Sherbrooke tote bag as well. And the winner is? Cassie Vio.
Cassie Vio! Woo! Yes! It's not rigged. I know all of these people so far. Okay. Can you pick the next one, please? Thank you.
Yeah, okay.
All right, the next winner is, I guess it's just the last three numbers I can read.
I think so. Yeah. And this is for City of Sherbrooke mug and socks from the CBC. Yeah.
It's a sock mug?
Two different prizes.
Oh, okay. All right.
They're still working on the sock mug.
I was just wondering. Keep your hot chocolate cozy, right? Okay. 334. So 0417334. 334. All right.
And for the online participants, City of Sherbrooke mug and CBC socks. Marissa Tessier. All right.
Yes, I know her from my elementary school days, Marissa Tessier.
All right. The next prize for folks here in the room is a City of Sherbrooke hat and CBC socks.
Okay, hat and CBC socks. 351. 351. Oh, okay. And with, yay, 351. Congratulations. Can you pick the next number?
And hat and socks for the online participants. Thank you very much. Yes, right? Did I? Yep. City of Sherbrooke hat and CBC socks.
Who's our online winner, Saul?
Hat.
He doesn't see a hat on the list.
What's the next one you have, Saul? Oh, okay.
Okay.
No, skip the mug and socks. See, yeah, hat and socks. Give us a name, I guess.
Hat. Just a name.
Yeah.
Live.
Yeah.
This is great.
Live television. Tracy
Rosen?
Yeah.
Tracy Rosen. Okay, see? Everyone's connected. All right, so Curran will take that prize to her. Okay, so we have another number. Our last prize winner chose a ticket, so I need to... I don't know. You're the one with the list.
I have a lot.
I have a Sherbrooke hat and socks.
Hat and socks in a bag? Okay, from the Ville de Sherbrooke. So this is number 350, 350. Yay! This is it. Here you go. If you could kindly just pick the next number.
Okay, the next online prize is a CBC notebook and pen. Susan Gwynn.
Susan Gwynn.
All right.
She's North Hatley, I think. Doesn't matter.
And
okay. Next one here. A chocolate bar from CBC. A tote bag with inside a hat and a chocolate bar from the CBC. Who knew? All right, 406, 406. 406. 406. I don't want that prize. I'm just going to pretend I don't have that number. No. 406. Is it you, Jody? Oh, it's me, Jody. Come on down. Really? Nobody has 406? All right. Well, I'll just choose another one. Dun, dun, dun. 406 was non-participant. Okay. 390. 390. Yes! Woo! Come on down. Congratulations! Woo! And you'll need to, you just keep that. And you need to, no, but you, that, she doesn't care. She says, they're all for me. Thank you. Thank you very much.
okay, for the next online prize is a CBC tote bag. And the winner is Joan Hébert.
Joan Hébert.
Joan Hébert.
Joanne Hébert. And the in-house prize? CBC notebook and pen. Okay, 346. Whoever has ticket 346? Yes, we have a winner. Right here in the front. Yeah, right here in the front. Isabelle's team. Woo! Team Isabelle. Okay. Yeah, just pick one. Okay, here you go. Yeah, so the same prize, $396. Okay. Kathy! Woo! Oh, Kathy, you got to pick a ticket number for the next person. Okay. Awesome, Miss McClintock.
And for the online prizes, a winner of a CBC t-shirt, CBC Trans Pride t-shirt.
Oh, CBC Trans Prize. Oh, Judith wants to see it. Can you show her? Linda Shattuck. Linda Shattuck.
Your names.
Oh, Judith wants one for the school. Oh, that's right. Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh, she has a point. Oh, in-house prize of a tote bag, $388. $388. Woo! Do you know Linda? She's a friend of mine. Yeah. Yeah, I got the t-shirt. Okay, Linda. Yeah. Oh.
So for the online prizes, the winner of a CBC water bottle, beautiful stainless steel water bottle. Emily?
Okay, all right. Curran?
Somehow Curran knows all of them. That's
Emily Bowles? Yeah. Connections. Yeah, we won't talk about that table over there. It keeps winning. It's not like I know them. We have a few more things. We have a T-shirt here. 3 T-shirts. One at a time. Sorry. We have 3 more T-shirts to give away to 3 more winners, and one of whom is the person with ticket 372. 362. Oh, okay.
So that's the one out. This small, medium, or large.
So that's it for online. So the next.
Sorry, one more online prize.
One more online prize, and it's
fabulous CBC North wood cutlery set.
Oh.
It's really cool.
Oh wait, cool.
It's got.
Wait, Stephanie wants it.
Chopsticks.
They're bamboo.
Yeah.
They're bamboo, and there's a pen.
This is not even the grand prize.
I would. Christoph Derringer, are you online? And did you participate? Okay, who is the winner? Deborah Dimitri, congratulations. You have an awesome prize here. I know it would be conflict of interest. He's at home sleeping. So we have a T-shirt to give away. 2 more. We have a medium and a large. Okay, so you have a choice of medium or large, and it is the person with ticket number 343. 343. Oh, come on up. Medium? Okay, so, and if you could just choose the last one, that'd be great. For the T-shirts, awesome. Thank you so much. So the last T-shirt is number 363. 363. 363. It's Claire! There we go. Congratulations. Is that it?
No, it's not it.
Oh.
We have
Another CBC water bottle. Oh, yeah, Claire, sorry. Here you go. Thank you. 365. You could take a drink of water each day of the year. 365. Marie! Woo! Marie Thibault! Congratulations. Does she have to choose a ticket as well? Yes, okay. Thank you. Merci, Marie. Merci. Oh, just a second.
Valerie's prize?
Okay, I have, what are you looking for? No, I have the ticket. Oh, yeah, okay, sorry. Take that back wrong. 348. 348. Cutlery, woo! Congratulations. Okay, and yes, please. Thank you. Much appreciated. Another water bottle, and this will go to the person who has ticket number 367. 367. 367. Oh, it's Melody. All right, and does Melody have to choose one? Okay. All right. Melanie, you're going to have to choose a ticket for the last prize, for the last person. Okay. And we have mug with socks from the CBC, a mug and socks from the CBC, in a library tote bag. And this will go to the person who has ticket number 380. 380. 380. No? 380. I'll try again. Okay, all right. 389. 389. 389. Oh, well, okay. $375. All right, Mary Perky, $375. It's never ending. Grand prizes. These ones are books, yes? Oh, 2. Oh, geez. So that's why he was saying.
Yeah, we'll just stick them all back in.
So we're going to put
Yeah,
them back.
they go back in.
So we have 2 grand prizes tonight, and we're putting all of the tickets back in, so even those of you who have already won amazing swag can be in the running to win.
That's so nice.
The first grand prize is courtesy of Shalimar Restaurant. It's a gift certificate for 2 people to have dinner. Beautiful, delicious Indian food here in Lennoxville. Thank you, Shalimar Restaurant.
Okay, Brandon's gonna pick for us. Just whatever, grab one. All right, thank you. Brandon has chosen 367.
Melanie Cutting.
Oh my God, didn't she just pick up the last prize? That's weird. I shook it. You saw me. I shook it. I was like, okay, wow. It's so
And there's one more grand prize. But I think this is fitting because, Melanie, correct me if I'm wrong, but were you there for the first Canada Reads 20 years ago? Yes, she was. All right.
Oh, congrats. Well, okay. I feel better now.
And the grand prize, the last grand prize comes with a little catch, which is that we don't actually have the prize here tonight. But the CBC assures us they're working on it. It's a signed copy of each of the 5 books, the prize winners. And whoever wins will just have to come back to the library soon to pick up their copies.
All right.
The winner is?
The winner is 358. 358. Oh! Woo! And who is our grand prize winner? You never win it. Well, you won tonight. Okay, so let me check the ticket. Nice. 358. Yep. Indeed, indeed.
Okay.
I think I've seen the winner of the books. I don't even need to call it the numbers. Just say that's what won.
All right, so we have the results of our vote. So this includes people who were present as well as those who were watching via our live stream. So let's get down here a little bit. So the audience for this year's Canada Reads and So Does Lennoxville, the one book to change our perspective. Well, you've decided that the book is the one defended by Curran Jacobs, and it's Greenwood. So congratulations. Any closing thoughts? Any closing thoughts, Curran? Thank you.
Yes, well, thank you. But I was just saying I wasn't clapping at first, and then I started clapping because really the book did it itself. I just read it and thought alongside with you guys, so please read this book.
All right, thank you. Thank you everyone for attending. There is a little bit of, if you want to put some donations in our donation jar, it's more than just a tip jar. And yes, so Judy Keenan is shaking the money maker, so, oops. Can we cut that? No, damn. All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us once again for Canada Reads, and so does Lennoxville. And we hope to see you next year with another panel of presenters and 5 more great books to read. All these books are available at the Lennoxville Library. There are
2 copies of each book at the
2
library.
copies of each book available at the Lennoxville Library. So do come by, take one out if you haven't already read it, or even if you've read it, maybe read it again with a new perspective. Thank you, everyone.
And one more thing, how about a big round of applause for our MC, fabulous MP, Stephanie Brown.
Thank you.
Yay.
Thank
and
you.
the CBC's Canada Reads is March 27th.
All right.